Okay, so what is a debugger? A debugger is a tool used for debugging. Haha. It's a computer program that assists in the detection and correction of errors in other computer programs. All popular IDEs have debuggers. I will be using IntelliJ. Professor Kuna can be seen in lectures using NetBeans, and Eclipse is another popular IDE at ASU. So now for a few terms so we can start talking debugger together. A breakpoint is an intentional stopping or pausing place in a program put in place for debugging purposes. It is also sometimes simply referred to as a pause. It's just a means of acquiring knowledge about a program during execution. There are line breaks, method breakpoints, and all these have unique characteristics, but the core idea is when you reach a breakpoint in your code, you pause and examine its current state. So there are a number of ways you can set breakpoints. The easiest way in most IDEs, and here in Eclipse, lingering breakpoint, is you just go into the left margin and you click wherever you want your breakpoint. In other IDEs, you might need to double click or right click and set it, but here in IntelliJ, you just click, and if you want to remove it, you click again. So if we set a breakpoint here, then we run the code, you'll see that we actually freeze the flow on line 12 here. So you can look, and there's some cool values that the debugger puts on here. Like we see that the args array was the string 3. We see that this string was declared here, and then on the line that we froze, we're assigning n to this arg that's right here. Well, we're parsing it to an integer, and then we're assigning that to n. And you can see down here we have this debugger view. Here's the frame we're in, and here's all our arguments that are visible. You can see just like up top, n equals 0. And then if we were to step through this code, we would start to see things change, like n would get assigned 3, and the rest of the program would execute. We'll get to that a little later. Right now, that's how you set a breakpoint. Okay. A watch point is essentially a breakpoint, except it's for a field or variable, or if you set a condition on a breakpoint. A watch point will stop whenever the designated field is used or changed, or if the condition you created is met. So hopping back into the code, we can look at this again. If we come down here to our method, and we were to set a breakpoint on this line, we can run the debugger. We can see that we stop when n equals 3. And n equals 3, as we know from the earlier videos, is the argument that we passed in. We can also look at, if we go to this frame, we can see our args value was 3. So it stopped at 3, because that was the first time we got to this code, n equals 3. But if we go ahead and we stop, and we were to right-click on this breakpoint and set a condition, like n equals 2, and then run the code, well, now it's just watching for that particular value. So instead of stopping at 3, we actually go, and then once n equals 2, as you can see here, n equals 2, then the program stops, and we're in our debugger view. So that's a watch point. All right, let's get rid of that. Cool. Now, finally, a few more vocab words so we can really communicate the act of debugging. A frame, aka stack frame, which I showed you just a little bit ago, represents a snapshot of the program's current state. Then there's step in, which allows you to go frame by frame, stepping through and following the logic and monitoring changes that occur in the code. Step in would also be used like if you were to reach a method and you want to follow where that goes, you would step into that method to then step through that code line by line. Step over allows you to jump through or jump over those methods that you aren't interested in investigating. Still following the logic, but not having to look at every single different method call. Then there's step out. Step out lets you jump back to the caller. So if you were in a method and you're like, yeah, I don't want to be in this method, then you press step out and it would go to the previous stack frame. The next video will give you an abstract view of stack or the stack and stack frames. And the video after that uses these debugging tools to step through our sample code and give a concrete example of using all these tools to take an intimate look at the dynamic execution of code.